Good morning. My name is Lydia O'Boyd, and I'm a lactation specialist. And I support families through breastfeeding, prenatally and while they're breastfeeding. And I support families as they're returning to work or school. And I support families as they're ending their breastfeeding relationship, whether it is in the event of a loss or if they are weaning. So, it is cold here in Los Angeles. We actually trying to have some winter. So, it is cold and I'm a bit late. So, I'm about to get on the freeway and a whole bunch of traffic. So, how are you guys doing this morning? How did breastfeeding go last night? Did anybody get any sleep? So, let me know. Comment below. See how everything is going. So, yesterday was the first day of the spring semester, and I am taking anatomy. It is one of my last required, it is the last required, as far as my list goes, the last required, college courses that I have to take. I need to look at my list again, but I believe that's what it is. It is the last one. I have to take some professional development classes, and then after that, I do that, then I can sit for the IBCLC exam, and that is the International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. So hopefully I will be able to take that in October and pass, and yes, so we are excited about that. We're excited about that. So I believe I talked about this. I went over it a couple weeks ago, the different levels of lactation support. Lactation support, when you go up from bottom to top, you have what is called a peer counselor. If you are with Leta League, they have their own version of a peer counselor. And usually you see a peer counselor in WIC and some Black infant health programs, okay? A lot of times peer counselors are not paid. They are certified, so they are professionally trained by someone who holds a higher certificate, a higher level of certification, and they work for very low wages. They are not highly paid at all. And they do mainly phone support. They're supposed to not have any hands-on support, and it's just peer-to-peer. So we're going to have a conversation, that kind of stuff. There's not a lot of education that's required, and in most cases, to get the job, and they're starting to change that, is that you would have had to breastfeed a baby at least 6 months, and your training, I want to say, is 25 hours, and you have to pass a test with 70% or better. Okay. Then the next one is a certified lactation educator, and that again is really, it's a step up from the peer support. You are actually able to now teach. So these are the people that when you go in the hospital, you go to the hospital class, you take the breastfeeding class, that's usually the person that you're talking to. The person who will come into your room and just check and see how you're doing. A lot of, when you go to WIC, they're probably sitting under the title of peer counselor, but they hold a CLE, okay? They hold the educator certification, all right? And so then, even though they're still making the very low wages, they have been certified at a higher level. And I'm giving you just the real deal. They really don't want you to know this. And so that person can do some educating. So those are the ones that's probably doing your support groups. They are supposed to refer you to a higher level of support. They can do triage, phone calls, things like that. All right, because they're educators, so they're educating you about breastfeeding. All right. there is no breastfeeding experience that's required. They go through a 45-hour training. They have to create, well, here in California, through what I went through, you have to create a class curriculum, a class, not a support group, but a class teaching curriculum, because that's what you're doing, right? You're teaching. So they want you to put together a full-on curriculum to be able to teach a breastfeeding class to expectant families, right? Now, and then the next one is the IBCLC, the International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. And there's 3 different pathways depending on your experience. So if you are a health professional, including a peer counselor, if you are currently, if you're not, you have absolutely no experience, or if you are a peer counselor but you're not working in the field, all right? So depending on your pathway, there's some things that you do. All paths have to take these 14 classes. Those 14 classes are very heavy in science. Good morning. They're pretty much, except for 2 classes, the general ed for a nurse. So I'm going to go ahead and take those 2 classes, and those 2 classes are microbiology and chemistry. Those 2 you don't have. You don't have to have, but you have to have all the other classes that a nurse would take. So a lot of my classes are filled with potential nurses, nursing assistants, physician assistants, physical therapists, sports therapists. Those are who are in my classes now. So, and then you have to have a certain level of clinical hours, and because I actually work in the field, you know, my hours aren't as much as somebody who does it, or it's up between, I have to look, I'm not familiar with all the pathways, I kind of just have a high level overview. But some pathways you have to have 500 hours supervised clinical hours, and others is 1,000 clinical hours. You have to have educational hours, and I believe they're all 90 hours, 90 credits. They're not 90 hours, but they're 90 credits. And so, like last week I went to the conference, that gave me some credits, all right? So you gotta keep up with your credits. So they only do the exam twice a year in I believe it's April and October, all right? So you have to take exam, and this exam is supposed to be like killer. People, you can take a prep course. There's a lot of things online that you can take. You know, like I said, I have to do my professional development classes, and that's a whole nother set of 6 classes that I have to take. And so I have to have all these requirements within 5 years of me applying to sit for the exam. Girl, I got it. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. So we, there's a lot of resources available to us. But again, the IBCLC was actually restructured, and they're actually considering restructuring it again. And one of the things that they did was that when the United States took on the World Health Organization's Baby Friendly Initiative, it's always been here, but just in the past, 10 years, they upped the ante, and they said it was really, really important because studies showed that it was something that was required. And so now, in order for you to have a accredited hospital, you have to be considered baby friendly. And before it was just an option, now it is not. So you know how there's other things. And for those of you who were here in Los Angeles, remember years ago, Martin Luther King lost their accreditation because they just weren't keeping up, in addition to some other foul stuff they were doing. Well, now what we're moving towards is even if you don't do that foul stuff, but you're not baby friendly, you lose your hospital accreditation. So your hospital can be shut down, a whole entire hospital. So it's just that serious. So, and now what they're talking about, there's talks about making this equal for clinics, all right? And some people say that that's not good. Some people say it is. I see the wisdom in it. Okay. And just to be clear, this accreditation for baby friendly, this baby friendly designation rather, it's really more policy than anything. And so you probably heard people, like you probably heard the talk in New York when they took on that all their hospitals would be baby friendly. What a lot of people think is that they're going to force you to give breast milk, and they will not make formula available to you, and that is the furthest thing from the truth. And so one of the reasons why I'm not friends with Whoopi Goldberg no more is because she bought in that and she said that foul mess on TV at morning prime time, and I just wanted to knock her so hard her locks came out. I'm so mad at her. What it is, it's a policy change. So really the bulk of the work is done in the upper levels, right? So they're changing policies. Which, does it affect, people on the floor? Yes, it does. Patients and stuff like that. The most, if you are a family, this is what your only concern is, okay? How it's supposed to be operationalized for you. You are supposed to have the option of breastfeeding or giving formula. Your availability to appropriate expert or professional lactation support is supposed to be more available, where it wasn't before. Yes, you do have to sign a waiver to get formula now. However, you're given the option, you're explained, can we do this, this, and this? That's how it's supposed to be, all right? Your nurses, anyone who touches a baby is supposed to have CLE level training. That's not always the case. So expect someone to have between peer counselor to CLE, okay? This includes your doctors, and remember, I've always said that where I am right now, I have more clocked clinical and educational hours in lactation than probably your pediatrician and your OB, okay? So, and that's a whole nother conversation for another time. And doctors are actually, I think right now here in California, they, I think the minimum that they're required is 16 hours. So they have to sit and do a 16 hours. So that means that they come off the floor and they do a full 2 8-hour trainings, which most of them balk at. They don't want to, and there's a huge cost. And so what the powers that be did, they said is, you got to think about it. Can't have all those doctors off the floor, and there's a cost because you still got to pay them, and they're not seeing anybody. So, when in reality, I said it was another time. They were supposed to be getting this training while they were in medical school, especially residency, but they're not. So what some people are trying to do is get them in residency. So again, that's a whole nother conversation because I'm about to go off into a nice little pig trail. So when you go into the hospital, you're supposed to have better lactation support. So more knowledge, somebody that's going to be able to help you. And here's the kicker. Then you're supposed to, whenever you go into a baby-friendly hospital, there's supposed to always be an IBCLC on the floor. What happens in a lot of cases is that IBCLCs, because they're high level, is that they usually don't work 24-hour shifts, around the clock, and they probably work a regular 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. So then what ends up happening is that it leaves parents lacking during after hours and on the weekends. And I've already said, don't have your baby Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. Have your baby Monday through Friday. Don't be done by Friday at 5 o'clock. Be out. And that's one of the reasons why I joke and I say that, because you may not have that level of support. So what a lot of hospitals did is, and I'm giving you backstory on the lactation work. What a lot of hospitals did is that they changed their job descriptions, and so they have a certain percentage of RNs who are IBCLCs. And so they went ahead, made the investment, and did that. And so what the IBCLE, the examiners, did to work together with the hospitals once that came here is that they changed the requirements so that nurses, it would be easier for official health professionals who've already gone to school to get through. So you still have to have, everybody still has to have these classes. And if you're a nurse, you already have them. If you're a doctor, you already have them. See how that works? What that did do, though, however, is it made a huge disparity, and it widened the gap for the field to be diverse and to make it accessible for everybody. So that's one of the things that we're fighting for now, is because I would always say lactation is very, very white. And so it's really easy for little Becky to go get an IBCLC, especially if she's a nurse. And you're like, well, wait a minute. There's a lot of Filipinos. There's a lot of black women, especially African and Jamaicans, that's nurses. Why is there a disparity? Well, do you breastfeed the whole time while you're in hospital? So when you come out, are you still breastfeeding? Yes. So then where are your community-based IBCLCs? And while you have the Leche League, again, the Leche League is white. Very, very white. They're working on it. Give them credit. They are working on it. But when you look across the globe, around the globe, and just across this nation, there are other people here. So just to give you just a little bit of data. Was it in 2016? Hakima Payne came to the California Breastfeeding Summit, the one I just went to, and she gave some data. Now the IBCLE, they don't, I don't know if they're doing it now, but then they were not tracking demographics. And so what they are doing, what she did was she had to go through insurance. To be an IBCLC, you have to carry malpractice insurance. So she went to the main insurance providers and looked at it. And there was actually a study that came out soon after that that talked about it. And so I'm combining that information. Worldwide, Japan has 200 IBCLCs. And I'm taking data from 2016. In Japan, what happened was the doctors pulled resources together, their own money. They saw it was a need, and they paid. Right? And you know how big Japan is, right? How many people is in Japan? That's not good, right? And for a lot of years, the test was only in English. And there was had to be a big push to get the test in a variety of languages. What is it? In countries, black countries, Africa, continent, like in the continent of Africa, they are very far few in between that you can find IBCLCs. Usually the ones that's there are usually white and they come in. So that says a lot. Now let's come here to the good old US of A. Want to say it's still very high, 75% or more are white. In the United States, and again, this was back in 2016, all of the United States, there are less than 20 Native American IBCLCs. For black women, I don't have the exact numbers. It's not that many. I know my mentor, Kimberly Durden, was one of the first black women to be certified under IBCLC. And Kim has been doing this for a very long time. Okay? And I want to say she got hers, I don't know if it was in the 80s or the 90s. So that's to tell you something. Okay? There's been a huge, huge push to get women of color and black women to this level, and it's been a struggle. And so I know there was some talk of actually adding a layer in there that would be I don't know if it would be just under, well, there was actually two. One layer under what I'm going through to make it easier for those to get the IBCLC. And there was twofold. One, for those people who did not have access to college to be able to go, and they will be able to get some of the credits, but still have to obtain some of the scientific information. And what they thought with that one, it would just make it easier for doctors, because like I said, they're sitting for 16 hours for the hospital to be baby friendly, but to make it easier for them to get IBCLC. Then they want another one. This one stressed me the heck out. They want another one that would be above what I'm doing, right? To make it mandatory for them to have some kind of professional scientific degree, so that they would have to go further. So pretty much you would have to have maybe like a full bachelor's in science and health science, so that you would have to take like pathology and epidemiology and things like that. Those are not required right now. Those are required for a bachelor's in health science. See how that's stressful? Just a little stressful. And then you still would have to go through and take the exam. And here, let me say this, in order to maintain your IBCLC, you have to have 90 hours, your 90 CEUs every 5 years. And right now, the way it's set is that you have to have your CEUs at 5 years. And then at 10 years, you have to go and sit for that exam again, in addition to having your 90 CEUs, I believe. Don't quote me on that part. So there is talks, and I'm not sure if they've made a decision on it, but it looked like they were leaning towards not having to take that exam. And of course, with that exam, you got to go and you got to pay for that exam all over again. And the exam is not cheap to my working poor self. Okay, so if you don't pass, then you're out that exam money, and then you got to try to, pass the exam, or you'll lose your certification, right? So your license number, and even though it's called a certification, is a license number, because you get a license number, and you have to know that number, and you gotta give it to the people. So this is what that does. Okay, and so I'm sorry, I don't think I explained exactly what IBCLC does. It is the top level in lactation. Okay, now many people will go to their doctor and they think, well, the doctor is going to know all this. No, IBCLC is top level in lactation. We call it the gold standard. They're the ones that are supposed to know pretty much everything about lactation. Okay, and here's the difference. Right now, where it stands in medical school, a doctor coming out of medical school, they do anatomy, right? They are taught, as far as breast anatomy, to look for tumors. They are not actually taught on the lactation process, right? So again, when I say I have more clocked educational and clinical hours, and when I say clinical hours, that means like rounds where I'm being either mentored or followed, where I'm actually seeing breastfeeding stuff under an educational piece versus sitting in a classroom, then your pediatrician, your OB, especially even your general practitioner. So that's what we're doing. So we only focus on lactation. So everything that would affect lactation is what we're trained on. So things like, so what are things that LC is brought, and LC is just a lactation consultant. What things are LC is brought to the table for if it's, you have a care team? Of course, your postpartum, antepartum period of care after you deliver. If there is a mom who has breast cancer, she has any kind of cancer. Of course, babies in NICU, we bring in the lactation consultant. Lactation consultants they do a lot of research, so you will see a lot of studies that have the IBCLC after probably a long list of other letters. Other things that will plague conditions that plague children, so like cancers, genetic diseases, things like that. Okay, that is why when we go to these conferences, you're like, well, you sat there and you for 3 days talked about breastfeeding. We absolutely did, and trust me, there's so much that we could talk about. The micro, and to go further, that's why you have those additional educational credentials because you can go that far. And while they don't have just degrees in lactation, there's other stuff that touches lactation that you can go further with. So biology, anatomy, physiology, when you're looking at the research, then that's why we had to do psychology, we had to do sociology, child development, statistics, all of that, right? Those are the general ed. And then for the nurse, and you can understand for a nurse, people don't understand for lactation consultants that you do need the microbiology and you do need the chemistry, and then you go further, you need the epidemiology and the pathology. So, and there's other things too that I'm not talking about, but there's other things, those are things that stick out at the top of my head right now. So when you sit in front of a lactation consultant and she looks like, especially if you know, with the, you know, the white women, and they're sitting there with their little special sandals and they have the shawl on, and you know, they're eating some granola, those probably are the older ones. The ones that you're sitting in front of now, the older ones did not have to go through that. They had to take a couple classes. They didn't have to take all those science courses, and they're pretty doggone smart. Usually what ends up happening is they started this work and then they branched out and they started doing more stuff because they wanted to expand their knowledge. So the ones that are coming up now who did have to take all that stuff, I didn't do nothing. You're looking at somebody that you know that has a long list of letters behind their name. They are very well educated. You know, they can probably say some stuff and you're like, huh, what? So it's just expanded. And so getting back to my point about why we need that, and how it affected the community, various communities, is because they looked at it from the hospital standpoint, which I get and I understand and I can completely, totally respect. But then you have the community standpoint. And so for me, will I go into the hospital? I will go into the hospital if my family is there. Do I want to work in a hospital? Absolutely, I do not. I have no desire to work in a hospital. And people's like, well, that's where you make money and da-da-da. My calling is to get a family through their breastfeeding journey. And in the hospital, it's just to get you initiated and through the doors upon discharge. And then if there's something else going on and you come back in, then they're there to help you with that. But the bulk of hospital lactation and support is to get the initiation done and to keep you breastfeeding until you're discharged, and then hand over to somebody else, and it's like, we wish you the best. That's not what I want. I want to be able to get you through. So I want to prepare you when you go into the hospital. If you need me there, I will go in as a visitor to help you, as a professional visitor, and then I will journey with you once you come home. Okay? I believe in that model. That model is really a WIC and the Leta League model, and I wholeheartedly believe in that. I think that families should, regardless of their socioeconomic standing. And so for this, it's the flip, because for lower socioeconomic families, they have this support with the WIC. Some have it with the Leta League, not at this level. If you're with Black Human Health, some other program like that, you might have that, where you have somebody that's calling and checking on you over a period of time. But if you are at a higher level socioeconomic, there really is nothing in place for you. And so it's going to cost. It's not free, but it's going to cost, and that's what I want to provide to those that are not getting that, so that you have that. Because like I said, I told the story of my ex-coworker who, she is a master's of social work. She's policy coordinator, policy director. She's done work on the Hill. She married a financial analyst. She Delta, you know, she got it going on, right? And when we talked, and I had assumed that she had worked with somebody else. I didn't know that she didn't. She went on to tell me that her only prenatal education was, she was having the EKG done during her pregnancy, and they just put a video on, and it was like, oh, we're gonna have you watch this breastfeeding video, and then that was all of her prenatal. The only support that she got when she had her baby was just a little bit of latch support in the hospital when she delivered. She got to the day 3, well, baby check, and the doctor told her that she was starving her baby. The baby had lost too much weight. Where was her intervention? Where was her support? Why does she not need the same level of support that a mom on WIC? Explain to me why we feel like she doesn't, and why are we not making a way for her? Why are we not building that in? And again, it's not the same. You can say, well, oh, I went to the breastfeeding class at the hospital. It's not the same. It is absolutely not the same. And a lot of people will say IBCLC, that's not her role. Maybe she should be connected with somebody else. And, you know, why would she deal with a peer counselor, right? I get that. But a peer counselor probably would have got her a long ways, and she'd have been prepared. And the peer counselor would have helped her between her time in the hospital until that well baby check. There would have been something that they would have talked about between now and then. So yeah. So in the community we have support, but we still need to hold those credentials for a variety of reasons. Insurance reasons, to be able to go back and forth, to say, well, I'm working with the IBCLC, something comes up and you need to talk to your doctor. The doctor will recognize the IBCLC before he will recognize the peer counselor, right? The IBCLC, you can sit at somebody's table, right? And then you're exposed, and there's a higher level of education that broadens your scope, your ability to address certain things. So that's why we have the different levels, and with the consideration of the other levels, which if I wasn't in the thick of it probably wouldn't have stressed me out so much. Maybe once I get my IBCLC, I might be a little bit more fond of the next level that they're talking about. But right now, I'm like, please don't put nothing else on my plate. Let me get through these science classes. So that's what the fields in the IBCLC. Now, I will say this, thrown in there are some other levels. I call myself a lactation specialist because honestly, I just told you guys this. You don't know this. You really don't. All you know is the average person says, you do what for a living? You just sit there and talk about breastfeeding all day? Why? So I say lactation specialist, right? When you say specialist, like you have a human resources specialist, you have a generalist, and it's kind of just like general, right? So that's why I dubbed myself lactation specialist. The average person does not know what internationally board certified lactation consultant is. They really don't understand the difference between a lactation consultant or anything else. They just, at my job, they call me the breastfeeding lady, a peer counselor, somebody at my level. I have an issue with the peer counselor, but some people say it's not a really big deal. But peer counselor really is a mom who breastfed, and she took a class, and that's pretty much it. Okay, she does have a certification, right? But in some cases, when you say peer-to-peer, it could be two moms who didn't have that 25 hours, and you're calling it peer-to-peer. And so to distinguish myself that I've gone through, that's why I'm not a fan of peer-to-peer. I think those who have gone through the professional training, and especially if you are working in the field, you're required to continue your education. And then, like I said, a lot of people who are in WIC who sit under the job title of peer counselor, they hold higher level certifications. So to put that person at the same level as a mom who breastfed and she's never gone through any kind of professional training, I just don't think that that's honoring and respectful of that person and all of the work that they've done. And I know that I'm starting to sound like doctors and stuff, and I hate that, but you've gone through the training, you went, you sacrificed, you've done that. You need to be acknowledged for that. Now I know, and I'm sounding like the people say, I can get my letters right behind my name. I've gone through it. I understand. Yes. So that's what it is. You want to have, for those of you who are watching, and you like, I just need breastfeeding support. You need breastfeeding support. You do. And I'm going to always encourage you to get a professional level of support. Can another mom help you? She can guide you. She can encourage you. But again, if she hasn't been professionally trained, she's educated and she can be an expert on her thing, right? Before I did this, I can give you my experience on what I went through. But now, being professionally trained, I've been exposed to other stuff that I would have never, ever experienced myself. So, my baby didn't have a tongue tie, but I've taken several classes on tongue ties. So, yeah. Just like I tell people, I never experienced nipple pain with David. I know what engorgement feels like, right? So, as a mom, right? A mom, take away all my education as a mom, I can tell you these things. I don't know what nipple pain is. I know what engorgement feels like. I know what it is to be concerned about my milk supply. I know what it is to use gadgets. I know what it is to breastfeed a preemie, that kind of stuff. But at no time did I have the level of understanding to be able to help another mom who didn't have my same experience. And even if she had my same experience, there's other factors that goes into that. So that's why I always say, yes, you need breast friends. You need breast friends. They're going to encourage you. So when you go to support groups and you're sitting next to, Timmy's mom and she's breastfeeding and you're breastfeeding, you guys definitely need to encourage each other. You need to exchange numbers. You guys need to go out and play dates. You need to do all that stuff. And you need to, when you're like, girl, I just don't think I have enough milk. And then Timmy's mom is like, girl, but you gonna keep doing this. Yes, you got this. Girl, what did Miss Lydia say? She said do this, this, and this. And then I read, and then you need to do this, this, and this. Yes, you do need that. However, at the same time, you do need to come and see Miss Lydia. We need to touch bases and we need to have a conversation. So what's going on? Why do you feel like you don't have enough milk? And then let me go through my litany, and it's a litany of questions so I can figure out what is going on. And if there is something else that maybe it's not just a normal growth spurt, then we can address that. Okay? So hopefully I didn't confuse you, but just giving you a little insight into the world of lactation. I know it's a lot, and people are like, it's just breastfeeding. I know. So, I'm going to go. You guys have a great day. Again, thank you guys for watching. If you guys are on the replay, thank you so much. You can find me, Lydia O'Boyd, CLE. You can email me, lydia@lydiaoboyd.com. You can find my website with my list of offerings and pricing, bit.ly/Lydia's resources. If there are specific topics that you want to discuss, please comment below, send me an instant message, or email me. I can prepare that. If there are issues or concerns that you're having, definitely hit me up, okay? I also feel like I pride myself in being a willing and great resource to connect families to other professionals, all right? Even if it's not lactation support, if you're looking for a doula or a midwife, definitely let me know. I can try my best to connect you with some awesome, amazing professionals, all right? All right, so you guys have a great day. It doesn't look like it's raining today in LA, but still be safe out on those roads, all right? The sun is shining, so watch for the glare. Talk to you guys later.